So it's called Do Good Well, and really it's a how-to guide for leadership, social change. And I'll go back a bit, which is, this actually, I wrote it when I was in end of college and med school. It came out right as I was graduating med school, like a few months before graduation, basically.
Busy.
And it was busy. And, when I was growing up, so I'm from a small town in West Virginia, which again, I said, like 6 hours from DC. And when I was a teenager and when I was growing up, the organization called the American Cancer Society was really like the biggest community organization in my hometown. Probably like the Southern Baptist Church and the American Cancer Society were like the big entities, if you will. And what was great is the whole community would come together we had a lot of cancer, there, lung cancer in particular, and the whole community would come together to do like these 24-hour walks, like walkathon sort of thing. It was called the Relay for Life. It's like an annual event, and it was like the biggest event in the town of the year, right? Everyone would be there. There were traffic would be on the streets for the first time ever, basically,
Wow.
So it was something that everyone did in different ways, different types of fundraisers and stuff. And so when I was in high school, I ended up starting really just like a club for teenagers to be able to participate in the American Cancer Society as a volunteer. And this was actually when the anti-tobacco movement became really big with teenagers, of teenagers recognizing, oh wait, the tobacco companies have been targeting us as kids, right? They're like 17 magazine has tobacco ads and stuff like that, right? And so how do we fight back and not be susceptible to this? This is really about how do you, one, identify what is it in the community that you care about, right? Is it women's rights? Is it saving puppies? Is it cancer? Is it mental health, right? There's so many things, climate change. So figuring out what you care about, how to then study and learn about it in a really good way, and in an unbiased way too. And then how to bring people together to actually make meaningful change, we say effective, collaborative, and sustainable. And we break it down into do what works, right? Make it effective, right? Because there's a lot of work like this that doesn't actually work. Right. Like we think it works, but then 10 years later we realize it didn't.
We also mentioned about how, especially with immigrant older adults, they may struggle with the concept of mental health, or how important that is, or how real that is.
How real that is, yeah.
What would you maybe say to those? I know it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. But honestly, I mean, like, a lot of my friends are the children of immigrants, and it's not, my parents are from southern India, but it's like all continents. It's like it's not. Certainly, there's a part of South Asian culture, but like really, I have friends, whose parents are from every single part of the world, and it's pretty universal. There are some countries. Brazil is actually, interestingly, quite good at this.
Oh, wow.
Like they talk about it more and stuff like that, and like it's not stigmatized to go to therapy. So go Brazil, we like you. But in fact, I was actually just speaking with folks who were creating a health app in India, and they were saying that they launched a whole mental health, like telemental health program, and they actually shut it down because no one was joining. And they're doing stuff around weight loss and fitness and stuff, but they shut down the other part because like people
That's so unfortunate.
It's so unfortunate. Yeah, and I hope in like 5 years or something it's better, right? But excuse me, COVID changed all of this, right? I think that COVID, one, made people realize that even if they had never struggled with mental health before, we all experience loneliness. Almost everyone, I think, probably had at least a day of depression or anxiety, related to all of this. A lot of people were drinking more, right? Because again, you're lonely, you're stuck at home and everything. So I think that it humanized what it is like to have these struggles because everyone actually finally experienced it, or if they didn't, like their kid did, right, or their grandkid did, their spouse. And so that is, I think, the first big change. And then because a lot of folks were trying to think about how do we provide free care, how do we increase all the like at Stanford, for example, my department of psychiatry, before COVID, no one was online. like I think it was going to happen. There was like a plan of, over the year, like little by little, we'll have clinics get online. But when COVID started, they were literally zero. And we're in the middle of Silicon Valley, okay? And most of my patients are like Google, Apple, Meta, employees and stuff like that, right? All the like tech workers. And we did not have online anything, right?
Wow.
And then finally, when COVID happened, in like 2 weeks, every clinic went online, right? It's like when, and that's what was in some ways I think so beautiful about COVID is we saw how all of us are actually able to make tremendous change in a short amount of time when faced with those challenges, right?
So with older adults as well, I was just wondering if maybe you knew any facts or any like actual data that can, because sometimes that's what they need, right?
Yes.
To show this is real, mental health is real.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I can give some statistics. So, one is that over the course of our lifetime, 50% of people will have a diagnosable mental health condition.
Wow.
50%.
That's big.
Yeah, that's very big. And I think what's weird, quite frankly, is that the way that we talk about it is like we whisper, right? Like, oh, this person has blah, blah, blah. And, I remember in my hometown growing up, one of my classmates' moms had cancer, and the whole community got together to help. People like changed carpool so she wouldn't have to take the kids to anything, and like all the neighbors were taking the kids to stuff. There was a fundraiser to try to like raise money for her and everything, and everyone just tried to help, right? It's like, oh, this is sad. How do we help you? Okay, teachers, classmates, everyone, the community. Another classmate very tragically lost her mom to suicide.
Oh no.
And let me say, everyone talked about it.
But
no one talked to her about it. It was all these whispers of, did you hear what happened? Like, that's so sad. But like, it was almost like gossip, and no one rallied to help them. And she's gone, and like, I would hope and pray that when things like that happen now, that people are there and supportive, but like, you just like have such an amazing loss, a horrible loss, and then you're even more isolated, right? Because people feel awkward about how to talk to you about it and stuff, is our website. And that's really, I think, the best way for people to get in touch with us. Who would want to get in touch? I think that anyone who's really, we actually published this thing, and it's been in the New York Times, not yet in Canada, but it's called the Stanford Social Media Safety Plan. And it's a whole, basically, framework for how to improve your own social media use, as well as, kids, grandkids, et cetera. It's like 20 questions that you go through and figure out for yourself, like what's helping you, what's not. And it's really like, how do you just make your life better, right? And so that's something I can send to people. If people get in touch with me on stanfordbrainstorm.com, I can email that to them. And it's something we really want to spread. And we want to spread it not only, because it's for all users, right? Like we're all on these different platforms, we're all online. And so how do we spend that time well, basically, in a healthy way? I think that's the first thing I would say that can be helpful. And then certainly folks who are like starting companies or working for companies that are looking to improve their, maybe it's social media, maybe it's AI, they're just their platform, right? How do we make your company, and especially anyone who has customers and users, how do we make a better mental health experience for them? We're very happy to work with you and bring that psychiatric medical knowledge to making your product, company, government, and community, and anything better. And from nonprofit, tech companies, everything in between. So that's the first thing. And then the take-home points. I think that we were actually just talking, like 5 minutes in nature can improve your mental health. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Like, right after this, like after the end of this, the credits are rolling, go out and take a short walk. Truly, what has been very interesting to me, especially as someone who's, I had this medical training, now I'm in the middle of Silicon Valley, and, seeing how different forms of technology make such a tremendous impact. The simple, free things in life are the things that matter the most. In-person relationships, right? Eating nutritious food, sleeping well, getting exercise, spending time in nature, finding hobbies that you love. all of that actually is what keeps us well and healthy. And it works in the long term, right? It works like both in the short term and in the long term, and it's free. So I think maybe that's one takeaway I want everyone to realize is like there are simple little things that you can do in your day that will add up. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I have to go run a half marathon, right? It can be, and that's awesome, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be, I'm gonna just listen to some music. I love Celine Dion. Listen to some music. Oh, and Bryan Adams. See, those are my favorite Canadian singers. Right, listen to some upbeat music and take a walk. Just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right? You'll do more and more with time, and I think that's tremendously important. And then really, let's be open and talk to each other about this. I'll tell you, my father, who I've talked about, is 73. I was diagnosed with depression in medical school, and he tried to be supportive and loving, and he was. It was actually only like a few years ago when a friend of mine was struggling with depression, and we were talking, my dad, and I were all talking, that my dad shared that when he was in medical school and residency, he struggled with depression, and he took medication, and sometimes it helped him, sometimes it didn't. And he shared that actually periodically over his life, every 5 years or so, he had something that made him depressed and made him sad. And he took some medication, he tried a little bit of therapy, but like he had never shared that before. Wow. And it was so life-changing for me to hear that, because I think, one, it made me feel like, oh, this is okay, it's not, I didn't do something wrong, right? And like, he experienced it too, and the only thing I'm so grateful that he disclosed that. The only thing I wish is that if I knew that when I was like 15, or even 25 or 35, I just turned 40, like how that would have changed the ability to talk about it with the people I love the most and everything, right? It humanizes it. And so I think, as we age, we know so much more about the world, right? Not only our personal experiences, but the experiences of our friends and family. And I mean, when I think about my mom and like the number of like relationships my mom has given advice for, right? All our cousins and family friends and stuff. I'm like, she's like a guru basically on here's how to have a good relationship. But we never talk about it. Like she talks about it with other people's kids, but not my brother and I. And so this just might be weird Indian parent things, okay? But you have such tremendous knowledge and insight and wisdom to share with the world, whether that's your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, your neighbors, your friends, your community, everything. And the value that has in changing lives, and not only making your mental health better, but making everyone else's mental health better, that's an immense power that you have the ability to do. And please embrace it. Because it's really, it's like a secret superpower.
Yeah, I mean, each of you sitting at home has that power. And I hope that you all gained something from today. I certainly did. We really appreciate your time, Nina.
Absolutely.
And thank you. This was Aging Well.